In the opening cinematic, a lone Silkfly breaks the charm on Hornet's cage as we cross into Farloom, allowing her to escape her Citadel captors. And the mystery of what these creatures are and why they helped us only became more intriguing to me when I noticed they guided Hornet upwards out of the Moss Grotto. What I wasn't expecting is that their true nature is one of the Citadel's darkest secrets, and is closely tied to some of the most important themes of the game. Today we'll be diving into how this story about funny bugs explores religion and capitalism as means of systematically controlling and exploiting the working class. This video will contain spoilers for all of Act 2 and a few minor area spoilers for Act 3, so save this video for later if you want to avoid those. And for those wondering, yes, I did play through the entire game with the HUD off for this, and yes, it went about as well as you'd expect. Now, let's get started. In our journey to the Citadel of Song at Farloom's Peak, we follow the path of a religious pilgrimage native to this land. And I gotta say, damn, these pilgrims have it rough. Many of them have become haunted by the silken curse which has fallen upon the entire kingdom. But as we climb closer and closer to our goal, it becomes impossible to ignore the sinister undertones of the pilgrimage itself. Every shrine built by the Citadel requires payment just to rest. Yet the rosaries used as currency are both a form of money and a symbol of faith. And so the pilgrims are incentivized not even to take the briefest respite. We also learn that despite the many dangers of this land, the pilgrims are unable to carry weapons to defend themselves. As a result, most fall victim to the many dangerous species which inhabit these caves. Finally, on the last stretch of this arduous journey in the Blasted Steppes, a land of harsh winds and ravenous sandworms, the pilgrims are judged by golden warriors of the Citadel, with those deemed impure being systematically slaughtered. As a result, so many have died before reaching the gates of the Citadel that the very bedrock of the kingdom is made from the shells of dead bugs from ages past who attempted the climb. This is most clear on the first step of the journey in the Marrow, a forest of bones which even contains a tablet referencing this fact. But almost every area is built upon these shells. It is only within the Golden Citadel and the nests of long-dead weavers where we are finally able to piece together the horrible truth behind the pilgrimage. Let's start at the beginning. After defeating the first sinner, we witness the origin of the Weavers. They are originally the common farlids we find throughout the game, raised up and given sentience by Grandmother Silk, in a similar fashion to other higher beings such as the Pale King and Hollow Nest. But this sentience comes at the cost of freedom. After defeating Widow, we see that the Weavers were forced into servitude, toiling away creating an endless song for their new god. As Hornet says to the Green Prince, mourning his home, "You were mortal bugs, caught beneath a being pale. Devotion or destruction, these are the only fates my kind allow." The Needle dialogue for the first sinner gives us a bit more insight. Cursed by Silk, cursed to know. She called us daughters, she called us divine. She lied. The first sinner is imprisoned for the crime of apostasy, which is to renounce a religion, so it's clear she turned her back on Grandmother Silk after finding out the Weavers were not born, but created to serve. The silk they were granted is part of this curse, giving them the ability to create song and worship. Now, I'm not a Hollow Knight lore expert or anything, but I just have this feeling that silk and song might be important in this game. All jokes aside, wishing to escape this fate, the Weavers wove an incredibly complex plan to win their freedom. The details of this plot are revealed in a discussion with Mask Maker upon Mount Fae after knocking off his mask to reveal his true face. And I have to say, it's really cool to play as a character that has so much knowledge about the world, to the point where a lot of the insight Hornet gives us is as key to understanding the lore as the Farloom NPCs are. Hornet notes that the bugs of this land climb towards their absolution without any idea of what it means, referring to the pilgrims, with Maskmaker responding that such is the case for all who serve her higher caste. He goes on to explain that the mortal bugs did once act in defiance, a partially successful plan carried out with the help and through the manipulation of the Weavers. This plan was the construction of the Citadel itself, which Hornet recognizes as both a church and a cage. The mask maker confirms this, that the Citadel is a web designed by the weavers to pass their burden of serving Grandmother Silk through endless song to the bugs of Farloom, while also secretly altering the song to lull her to sleep. It's clear that the pilgrimage to reach the Citadel is also part of this scheme, and that is why music is so important to the religion of the pilgrims, as we can see in characters like Sherma. It's also obvious that music contains a powerful form of magic which interacts with Silk. In Hollow Knight, we pulled soul from foes and used it directly to perform spells, and in Silksong it's largely the same, except Hornet transforms the soul into silk within her shell. As a part weaver, she can use a silk needle to momentarily freeze haunted enemies on strings of silk and hear their thoughts. The soul within the silk gives us access to the minds of others through music. With this in mind, the fact that every bench that can be activated with rosaries along the path of the pilgrimage is adorned with 3 large bells makes a lot of sense. The larger shrines containing a single massive bell each seem to have some form of magical properties when rung. The bell where we find Widow spreading the haunting in Bellheart, and the first shrine in the Citadel, both have been bound with silk, preventing them from ringing. Likely because these bells are part of the charm the weavers made to lull the grandmother into slumber. It's no coincidence that these large bells are specifically the only ones the pilgrims must ring before the grand gate of the Citadel can be opened, and are the only ones which don't require payment. This also gives context to the kingdom's obsession with bells. We've got the town of Bellheart, the Bellway, Bell Hats. So, the point of the pilgrimage is to create a steady stream of enchanted music as they ascend the kingdom. But this raises the question of why this journey is designed to be so hard on the pilgrims, making them pay rosaries for simple things like rest. Why install the system of judgment in the blasted steps, killing certain pilgrims while letting others pass? The dishes into which we offer rosaries are depicted in almost every statue related to the pilgrimage, in Bone Bottom, the Marrow, and even alongside the walls of most shrines. These offerings are clearly key to the religion the weavers established. The answer becomes clear once we reach the Citadel, and we finally see the divine reward promised to the pilgrims, rising up into the beautiful golden halls of the It is here, beneath the Citadel, that the horrors of capitalism and industrialism are most obvious. The underworks are one of the best areas in the game from a narrative perspective, with the very first thing we come across down here, after losing all but one mask in the fall, are a set of benches which cost 15 rosaries to use a single time, then close after use, requiring additional payment. These benches, the layer of grime coating every surface, the hiss of hot steam alongside the constant whirring and groaning of machinery that would grind a worker to dust in a second, all combine to create this oppressive atmosphere of hopelessness. It isn't stated explicitly why some pilgrims are granted a place in the Citadel's holy choir, and others are forced to toil in the dangerous and dirty underworks, but based on what we find down here, I think it's clear the answer is wealth. The pilgrims in the Citadel drop large amounts of rosaries, while the underworkers barely have anything at all, sometimes only dropping a single rosary. This one moment in which we come across 2 workers enraptured by a glowing item, just to realize it's only a frayed rosary string, the equivalent of pocket change in this world, is both brilliantly evocative and incredibly dark. Now we begin to see how truly predatory the Citadel really is. Maybe a pilgrim spent their rosaries resting at a bench before finishing their climb, but because now they don't have enough rosaries, they are viewed as not having enough faith, so they must work to prove themselves. The same system which takes their money tells them they are lesser without it, conditioning them for the endless labor that awaits. There's one room in the Underworks which is simultaneously one of the most evil and interesting places in the entire game. It is clearly a form of break room which contains 3 of the one-time use benches. There's also a confession booth which costs even more rosaries, but no matter what is said, they will be told by an automated message that their sins are grave and they must work to atone, even going so far as to tell them to skip meals and work extra shifts. After slaving away all day, an underworker must spend all of their rosaries just to get a break, but after they're done, they're right back where they started, with only more work ahead of them. Elsewhere, in a secret room, we find a bug named Loam. Loam is one of the most tragic characters in this game, and is a representation of every bug in the Underworks. He earnestly believes that those above are always watching, and that if he works hard enough, they will see it and reward him with a place in the Citadel. If we play the needle-in around him, he will tell us it reminds him of his time in the Citadel as a child, with the implication that unlike the pilgrims, he was born of the Citadel and forced into the Underworks as child labor. He asks us never to play the music again. This labor is killing him, but when we tell him to stop, he is confused. We work and the Citadel breathes, those above sing, and all is right. The treadmill in Loam's room gives us a taste of labor in the Underworks, and I'll let it play out in the background to show how much effort it takes just to earn one measly rosary. The truth is, nobody is watching. Nobody cares about what happens down here. They will never get out no matter how hard they work. They are cogs in a machine, promised an eternal reward that will never come, a wage slave. The only unacceptable thing for the Citadel is working bugs dying unnecessarily, as we see in a message in Terminus banning Ventricia usage. Death means an end to the labor, an end to the song. Now, in comparison to all that, you might think it's not so bad for those wealthy pilgrims who enter the choir, and at first they do seem to have it pretty good. They wear clean, holy white and gold cloaks and live within the gilded halls of the Citadel, so opulent and beautiful that it's easy to forget what lies underneath. Yet despite seeming to fare much better than their underworking brethren, we come to learn they face their own horrors. The choir, led by the conductors, sings the endless song of the choral halls. In addition to this music, we are told by the ancient statues in the Cogwork core that of the 3 main factions of the Citadel, it's the conductors of the choir that are tasked with guiding their land to ever greater heights. We find out exactly what this greatness entails in the White Ward, the surgical wing of the Citadel, and all the horrific procedures practiced within. Choral commandments are orders issued by the Citadel. We find 2 of these within the dark halls of the ward. The first is the Surgeon's Orders, containing a series of short notes and commands. Devout has succumbed during silk suture, refuses to revive, sin committed, husk marked for cremation, retrieve dregs. The first experiments of the White Ward are to bind silk from the Grand Mother into the shells of mortal bugs to grant them an extended life. The fact that the sins of a bug prevent this process from working explains why pilgrims are judged upon the blasted steps before gaining entry to the Citadel, weeding out the bugs which cannot be fused to silk, so that those who remain are ideal servants, able to sing for far longer than any other. The horrible silken abominations we face in this area are a result of this procedure, and are specifically choir bugs, as we can see by the unraveled boss fight, where we face the husk of a conductor. The audio recording of a conductor receiving a silk infusion we find here is particularly haunting, showing just how painful this procedure is. After death, or in the case of a failed procedure, the bodies are cremated by the morticians to retrieve the silk used. This experimentation is also how Grandmother Silk was able to take control of the Citadel, and all of Farloom, so easily when she eventually stirred from her slumber. This practice has been in use for so long that it has passed from parent to offspring, spreading throughout the entire kingdom. As Hornet says, she needed only to reach for herself. It's ironic that in seeking a way to maintain the Citadel's song forever, they inadvertently doomed it to fail. Silk suture is certainly terrible, but the true horror of the White Ward is only revealed in Act 3, A second, even more sinister procedure can be found here, which finally provides an answer to the initial question of this video. What are the Silkflies? Within a hidden wing of the ward, we find a massive contraption surrounded by Silkflies beside a room filled with dead bodies. Within is another choral commandment. Bug of voice grown hoarse or shell fallen frail, you have been selected for duty most sacred. Become our light, our guide in darkness, that others worthy may climb to join the holy song. All of the Silkflies we encounter throughout our journey are the souls of bugs who could no longer serve the Citadel, those who had outlived their use, transformed for the White Ward. The flowery language used in the commandment only makes this machine more sinister. In this form, they guide pilgrims as we experience ourselves in the Moss Grotto and the Mists, but for the most part, they are insultingly used as simple light sources within most of Farloon. Imagine surviving the pilgrimage, spending your whole life working for the Citadel, and as a final reward for your long years of service, your soul is used as a glorified light bulb. This explains why the Silkflies guide us, but not why one rescues us at the start of the game. We don't get anything that explicitly explains this, but I think we receive enough hints to figure it out. I have two theories. The first stems from the fact that when we first meet Lace, she is conducting 3 of these Silkflies, and reveals she somehow knows we fell at the start of the game. As a result of the Weaver's Rebellion, the grandmother created Lace and her sister Phantom by weaving their shells from silk, a frail form cursed to an eternal childhood, rendering them easier to control than her previous children. Because of this, Lace actively opposes her mother by trying to kill us, preventing her from stealing Hornet's silk for herself. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Lace sent this Silkfly to free Hornet to spite her mother. Lace is obviously very important to the main themes of this game, and so her influence on the story starting so early without us even realizing it would be fitting. One other possibility I like is that it could just be a small but incredibly meaningful sacrifice by the soul of an old pilgrim made through its own free will, which in a literal butterfly effect topples the entire kingdom. The Silkflies have another purpose within the Citadel, and are an evolution of the experiments of immortality performed for the choir in the White Ward. The last edict of the conductor states, "And lo, is eternity sustained. By Architect's claw we welcome that final form of dial and rotor and souls gladly given, the perfect, unfaltering voice." The many cogwork machines tasked with maintaining the Citadel were created from the souls of choir bugs, which we can see fly away after we defeat them, a final transformation of eternal service. They discovered a way to achieve the final goal of capitalism, to strip all of the individuality and will away from a worker, making them into a subservient, immortal machine. Hornet's journal entries for these cogwork machines share this disdain. Born and built only to work until time stiffens its limbs. Perhaps it is mercy this construct knows nothing of the freedom it lacks. The most impressive use for these Silkflies can be seen in boss fights. The 4th chorus is a massive mechanical construct which is powered by not one soul, but hundreds combined together. The inactive versions we find in the Underworks can be brought to life by Hornet's Needlein, referencing their existence as a conglomerate of souls. We can also see many Silkflies spilling out of the eyes of the 4th chorus as we defeat it, enjoying a long-awaited freedom. The cogwork dancers are one of the most beautiful foes we face in-game, and show that the experience and skill developed through a bug's lifetime is preserved through the process of soul extraction, but the free will which fostered this learning is lost. This was the end result of the world order the Weavers originally designed. This system of religious capitalism to power the Citadel, maintaining an endless song to keep their god asleep, which would outlast even those who created it. It is spelt out clearly for us in a Weaver's harp relic. Sisters, spiders, the burden is past. These simple bugs shall bear it full, never to cease, never to silence. We shall die and wait and pray that one may come of silken strength enough to weave us free. Just as in our world, consequences of this massive mechanical monstrosity extend far beyond its own borders. The Citadel has contaminated much of the surrounding environment. You can thank them for the existence of biowater and its terrible boss runback, as the toxic refuse of the exhaust organs spread into this once beautiful land, its inhabitants transformed by the volatile chemicals and the waters becoming infested with maggots. We also learn that Greymoor was once a vast farmland which produced food for the entire kingdom, until it was repurposed to catch and recycle silk fallen from the Citadel above. The people here now exist on the verge of starvation, subsisting off of the muck roaches of Sinner's Road. Also, fun fact, it's likely called Sinner's Road because it leads to the back entrance of the Citadel, which a sinful pilgrim could use to avoid being judged on the blasted steps. Entire kingdoms like Lost Verdania and the Coral Tower were transformed from lush natural wonders into desolate wastelands for opposing the Citadel's industrialism, now only preserved in memory. As an environmentalist myself, I really appreciate how nuanced Team Cherry's depiction of natural destruction by capitalism and industrialism is, and how deeply ingrained it is into this world. But what else could we expect from the team that continues to release massive 10 out of 10 games for less than a third of the price than other AAA studios? In the end, the Weavers do get their wish, one strong enough to free them from their god. But fortunately, despite the spider's grooming, Hornet is intelligent and compassionate enough to recognize the sins her forebears committed to achieve their goals, and attempts to build something new, something better, to save all the bugs in the kingdom from subservience to its monarch, without becoming her replacement. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this and want to see more Silksong content, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. This game is truly massive and there's so much more to discuss. I'd love to talk about the really deep exploration of motherhood and sacrifice that's present here. As always, I hope to see you next time.